told me I was holding him back. So while he was away with his mistress, I moved out, took the receipts, and left divorce papers on the counter. Now I'm thriving, and he's begging for a second chance. When you've built your life around someone, it takes a specific kind of moment to wake you up. Mine was a whispered conversation I wasn't meant to hear, and a calendar alert that changed everything. For a bit of background, my name is Melissa, and I've been with Eric for almost 7 years, married for 4. We met in college. He was the classic dreamer type, always talking about his big plans, his startup ideas, the book he was definitely going to finish one day. Meanwhile, I was the practical one, the planner, the one with the color-coded Google Calendar and emergency savings account. We made it work somehow. I'd cover rent when his freelance gigs dried up. I bought the car we shared, I did the taxes. But I believed in him, you know? I thought I was investing in our future, that once his big break hit, we'd finally be partners in the truest sense. Spoiler alert, I was wrong. The cracks started showing around year 5. Eric became more irritable, less grateful. He started referring to my job, project manager at a mid-sized consulting firm, as boring but reliable, with a smirk that made my blood simmer. He'd say things like, some people chase dreams, some people make Gantt charts, and I'd laugh along like it didn't hurt. But I still believed, until last month. I came home early from work. Our team got let out after a surprise all-hands, and when I walked in, I heard Eric on the phone in our bedroom. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but I froze when I heard my name. She's just so safe, you know? Comfortable. It's like I'm stuck living in beige. I need fire, passion, not spreadsheets and meal preps. I felt like I'd been slapped. I backed away from the door, heart hammering. My dinner bag slipped from my hand, and he heard the clatter. He came out of the room a second later, phone pressed to his chest, pretending like nothing happened. "Hey babe, you're home early," he said, too casual, too bright. I didn't confront him that night. I just nodded, microwaved my food, and chewed while my brain spun at 1,000 RPM. The next morning, I checked his calendar while he was in the shower. Shared Google Calendar, he never bothered to hide it. There it was. Networking event at Alara Lounge, 7 p.m., a dot. A name I didn't recognize. I decided to follow him. I've never done anything like that before in my life, but something inside me had cracked. And once something cracks, the only question is whether you patch it or break it wide open. Alara Lounge is one of those rooftop places with overpriced cocktails and velvet ropes that make regular people feel like VIPs. I showed up in a trench coat and flats, parked 2 blocks away, and waited. At 6:57, Eric arrived, looking like someone I hadn't seen in months. Collared shirt, his nicest shoes, a spritz of cologne he only wore for special occasions. He wasn't dressed for a networking event. He was dressed for a date. And then she appeared. Her name, I later learned, was Ariel. She was everything I wasn't. Tall, effortless, boho chic. And they kissed hello. Not a polite peck. A kiss that said they'd done it before, and then they disappeared into the building. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't even feel surprised. Just a hollow, bone-deep confirmation of what I'd been denying for months. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and made a list. Because when you're with a man who's betrayed you, and you've spent years being the foundation of his life, you don't just leave, you plan. Over the next few weeks, I became a shadow version of myself. Eric didn't notice. He thought he was getting away with it, probably. Thought I was still his safe little wife, folding laundry and meal prepping chicken thighs while he played footsie with his mistress and called it networking. Here's what I did. I opened a new bank account at a different bank, one he couldn't access. I slowly funneled 10% of every paycheck into it. I made copies of all financial documents. His failed business filings, the joint credit card he maxed out, the fake invoices he used to reimburse himself from our shared savings. I installed a camera in our living room, hidden in the base of a lamp. My lawyer would later call it incredibly helpful. I reconnected with a former colleague who had moved to Boston and mentioned her firm was hiring. I updated my resume. I stopped initiating conversation, stopped cooking for him, stopped laughing at his jokes. I became background noise, and still, he didn't notice. Then one night, I pretended to fall asleep on the couch while he FaceTimed Ariel in the bedroom. He left the door slightly open. She said, "So, when are you telling her?" He replied, "Soon. I just need her to finish filing our taxes. She's better at that stuff." I stared at the ceiling and added one more bullet point to my list. Finish taxes, file for divorce, burn the bridge. I wasn't planning to make a move until after the taxes were done, but then Eric gave me the final push. It was a Saturday afternoon. I was folding laundry when he burst into the room grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. "Babe, guess what? Ariel and I are going to Cabo next month." He caught himself too late. I just stared at him. "Excuse me?" His face paled. "Oh, I meant like a group trip, networking thing." I nodded slowly. "Right, networking." He blinked. I blinked, and for the first time in our entire relationship, I saw fear in his eyes. Not guilt, not regret, just fear that he'd said too much and might lose the free ride. That night, I stayed up drafting a letter to his parents. Eric's mom had always loved me. She once told me I was the only reason she didn't worry about her son's future. I never told her about the debt, the unemployment, the way he made me feel like a burden for asking for help with the dishes, but now I would. The letter was short, polite, factual, not because I needed validation, but because I knew what was coming. Eric would spin a story the minute he realized I was gone, that I left him without warning, that I was unstable, that I had the affair. I needed my receipts in place before he could rewrite history. I planned my exit for the first weekend of April, while Eric was scheduled to be networking in Atlanta. Red, spending 3 nights in a boutique hotel with Ariel, drinking organic cocktails and pretending to be visionaries. I told him I had a women in leadership retreat that weekend. He didn't care enough to question it. I waited until his Uber pulled away, then texted my best friend Brianna and my cousin Marcus. Within 20 minutes, they were at my place with boxes, tape, and enough emotional support to power me through the next 36 hours. We packed with surgical precision, my clothes, my books, my laptop, and backup drives, the furniture I'd inherited from my grandmother, the couch I'd bought on credit in my name, all the cookware, because of course I paid for that too, the wedding album, not because I wanted it, but because I refused to let him revise our story with selective amnesia. I left behind the bed, the TV, the desk he used for his music production. I even left the smart speaker because I didn't want to hear his voice yelling skip every time a commercial played. I deep cleaned the kitchen, not for him, for myself. A goodbye ritual. I left a folder on the counter, divorce papers, a breakdown of who owns what, a spreadsheet tracking every joint expense, a note that read, "You said I was holding you back. Consider yourself free." I moved into a 1-bedroom unit across the city. Small, quiet. Sunlight pours in every morning, and I have a tiny balcony where I drink coffee and pretend I'm in Paris. Eric didn't notice I was gone until Monday evening. I ignored his first 3 calls. By the 4th, I got a barrage of texts. "Where are you? What is this? We can talk about this. You blindsided me." Followed by, "This is because you're jealous of Ariel, isn't it?" "I didn't cheat. We had a connection you and I lost." "Be honest, you were never supportive of my dreams." I didn't respond. The next day, his tone changed. He emailed me an apology, said he was spiraling, and that he still loved me, in a way, that I was his anchor, that he'd go to therapy. Then 24 hours later, he posted a shirtless mirror selfie on Instagram with the caption, "Sometimes you gotta lose the weight that's holding you down. That's just new beginnings. That's just growth." And just like that, any doubts I had disintegrated. I sent the screenshot to my lawyer. She laughed, then got to work. I started therapy 2 weeks after I moved out. I didn't think I needed it at first. I thought I was fine. I wasn't. The first session, I sat there talking about tax returns and shared laundry duties, and my therapist looked at me and said, "Melissa, do you realize he emotionally abused you?" I laughed, then I cried. For the full remaining 37 minutes. Because it was true. It had been true for years. The subtle digs, the cold shoulders, the manipulation dressed as charm, the way he always needed saving but made me feel like the burden. It wasn't a toxic phase. It was the pattern. My lease was for 12 months. I filled the space with color, plants, Article A pink kettle I'd never buy when I was with Eric because we don't need stuff like that. But I do. I need joyful things. I started going to yoga again. I cooked for one. I stopped waiting for someone to notice how tired I was and started resting without permission. Eric texted again a month later. "Saw you got promoted. Congrats. Just wish you'd wanted to build something together." I stared at the message for a full minute before deleting it. I did want to build something. I just finally realized I was doing it alone. By midsummer, our divorce was in full swing. Eric contested everything, despite knowing full well he didn't have a legal leg to stand on. My lawyer, a no-nonsense woman named Deborah, said he was dragging things out to exhaust me emotionally and financially. He wanted half my 401k, the couch he never paid for, even the pink kettle, which he said represented sentimental value. Deborah asked if I wanted to go to mediation. I said, "I want to go to court." It wasn't about revenge. It was about finally being heard in a room where facts matter more than charm, where receipts beat charisma. We showed up to the first hearing and Eric had the audacity to wear the leather jacket I bought him for his 30th birthday, the one where I threw him a surprise party and he called it a performative waste of time. He looked tired, thinner, not in a good way. He glanced at me, probably expecting a warm smile, some trace of affection. I didn't give him anything. Deborah went first, calm, clinical, ruthless in her presentation of his financial fraud, verbal manipulation, and documented infidelity. She played 3 audio recordings. Him telling me I was wasting my potential by not supporting his music full-time, mocking my 9-to-5 sheep job, and that infamous phone call where he said I made life feel beige. Eric's lawyer looked like she wanted to melt into the carpet. Eric tried to speak directly to the judge, tried to pivot, said I was cold, emotionally unavailable, that I had given up on the marriage before it had a chance to thrive. The judge cut him off. In the end, here's what I got. Full ownership of the apartment's contents, minus a few shared items. Reimbursement for the fraudulent credit card charges. Retention of my retirement accounts and income, a formal binding agreement that Eric was not entitled to spousal support, a court order requiring him to remove my name from any of his outstanding debts. He got a box of memorabilia, his recording equipment, and his pride handed to him in a manila envelope. As we exited the courtroom, he muttered, "Hope it was worth it." I turned, looked him dead in the eyes, and said, "It was." About 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. A handwritten one. I recognized Eric's handwriting immediately. It was 5 pages long. It wasn't an apology, not really. It was more like a retrospective monologue. a half-baked memoir from someone trying to cast himself as a misunderstood artist who just couldn't thrive under the weight of expectation. The last paragraph read, "I keep thinking about how you looked that night at Alara Lounge. You were watching me, weren't you? You could have blown everything up, but you didn't. That's what kills me. You let me hang myself, quietly, gracefully. You always were better than me." I burned the letter in a ceramic bowl on my balcony while listening to Taylor Swift and drinking wine. I didn't need his regret. I already had something better. Peace. It's been almost a year now. I've since been promoted to senior operations manager. I run a team of 20. I'm good at it, I'm respected, and I come home to a place that feels like mine, in every sense of the word. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I hung my first finished piece in the hallway. It's messy and wild and chaotic, and I love it. A few months ago, I started seeing someone new. His name's Julian. We met at a community pottery class I took on a whim. He noticed I was struggling with the wheel and gently took my hands in his without saying a word. Just guided me through the motion. No sparkly speech, no grand monologue, just presence. He doesn't ask me to shrink. He doesn't ask for sacrifices I didn't volunteer. He's kind to strangers, good with my friends, and the first person to ever say, "You don't have to carry everything alone." Is it forever? Who knows? But it's real and healthy. And sometimes that's enough. I've learned a lot in the past year. I've learned that you can love someone deeply and still need to leave them. That peace isn't quiet, it's loud in its own way. It fills your chest in the middle of a solo Sunday morning when the sunlight hits your coffee just right and there's no one there to demand you pour them a cup first. I've learned that real love doesn't feel like being responsible for someone else's dreams at the cost of your own, that you can burn your bridges and still build something beautiful on the other side. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to stop trying to fix what someone else keeps breaking. Eric once told me I was holding him back. He had no idea what I was capable of once I let go.